And welcome to the Orange Stage for our third session of the day at Event Tech Live. Thank you very much for joining us. We've had a morning of amazing sessions so far, and I've got absolutely no doubt that this one will be as well. Just before we get started, a couple of bits of housekeeping. The best way to hear these sessions is using the headsets on your chairs. Once we have finished the session, if we can just ask you to leave them on the chair when you go, and they'll be cleaned and replaced ahead of the next session. The other thing to bear in mind is that we are taking questions today, but we're only taking them electronically, so that we can take them from both the people in the audience here and also the people viewing online. The best platform to do that with is Glisser, and you can get there by scanning the QR code, which is just over my left-hand shoulder, or alternatively the URL for that is glsr.live/ETL21. We really do get more of these sessions if you raise questions as we go through them. So please, if you hear any questions from what Paul says as we go through, please feel free to drop them in there and we'll raise them at the end. Delighted that this session is going to be led by Paul Foster from OnePlan, who they're doing amazing things in the industry, a real leader in growth over the last few years, and this is going to be an amazing session. So I hope you enjoy it, and without any further ado, I'll hand over to you.
Thanks very much, Craig, and thanks very much for coming along and those people kind of watching online as well. Okay, so the metaverse, everyone now knows, kind of has heard about it thanks to Mr. Zuckerberg last week, and it's a big kind of hot topic. We've been kind of playing around in this environment for a while. We more call it kind of digital twinning of venues and sports space. So I'm just going to take you through kind of a couple of case examples of how we've been moving into that space and some of our key clients internationally. Okay, so I went on Google and looked at Google Trends, so the search terms for metaverse, and as you can see, in the last kind of couple of weeks, it's absolutely shot up as a result of the kind of notification from Facebook. Interesting kind of media around that, whether it's positive, negative, people concerned about Facebook or Meta taking everybody's information, how they're going to use that, parents concerned, are their children going to spend all their time in the metaverse, and be concerned about kind of protection around that. We've got kind of quite a different take on metaverse and digital twins, which I'm going to go through today. One of probably the best examples recently was the Travis Scott concert. Actually had 12 million views kind of online, and people kind of engaging in that concert. So think about what a physical venue could actually host if they were maybe at Madison Square Garden or maybe at the Staples Center in LA. You've got a limited number of spectators actually in that venue. Maybe no more than 20,000, limited people on their iPhones, but actually by moving it to the metaverse, it's a much bigger kind of user base that you have, and more people that you can engage with, and that was the real kind of first example of how that could be done. So why wasn't it done earlier? Why wasn't it done like 10, 15 years ago? Well, it had been talked about, digital twins and 3D. We'll all remember the Sims games years ago, which we used to kind of play around with. The challenge was the hardware had never caught up with the software. So when we go into a lot of detail and showing the bruises on the apples and the really kind of high fidelity detail, no one had at home their hardware to be able to cope with it. And if any of you have been watching Netflix recently, the $1 Billion Code is a really good example of that. So these are the early people in Berlin who developed the equivalent of Google Earth. Now the big challenge in there, the number of computers and servers they had just to be able to process all that information and all those kind of tiles. The software and the development was there, but the hardware wasn't there to be able to cope with it, so no one can actually view it kind of online. That's now moved on. We have a partnership with Intel and some of the other big players in the industry. The hardware is kind of caught up. So people at home are able to experience these very kind of detailed environments. If you look at kind of Fortnite and look at some of the games now, they're incredibly realistic. If you look at the FIFA games as well, go back 10 years, you just wouldn't have been able to do that on your PlayStation or your home computer, but now it's moved on. The other big development is the advancement in Wi-Fi and streaming capabilities. So with our technology, we actually stream it in from AWS, Microsoft Azure. We have supercomputers located around the world, so it doesn't matter what type of laptop you have, you're going to be able to experience that environment with your kind of iPad or with a standard level of laptop anywhere in the world. And what we always ask the people who are kind of working for us at the moment, you used to get asked kind of in job descriptions, have you got a clean driving license? It's kind of not important for us anymore. Well, what's your Wi-Fi connection like? That's a kind of a really, really kind of big thing, is really important for us. And advancements in 4G and 5G. You know, and the team that we have, we work all over the world. We don't have a fixed office, people work all over the world. So it's really kind of facilitating that. Okay, so what we'll do now is just dive into kind of Venue Twin and what it looks like. Okay, so you can see here, this is Stade de France. So we're currently working with the Paris 24 Olympic and Paralympic Games. We're building digital venue twins of their environments. So what you can see here is the signage outside the venue. We can rotate the sign round. We can see if the arrows are pointing in the right direction. Is the typeface correct? And then we can go and fly into the venue. Okay, so I can follow a client route. I can go into the venue. I can change this environment. I can change the weather. I can change the wind, I can change the strength of the wind, so we can simulate that whole environment. Now, teams working on the Olympic Games are able to do this from anywhere. So the team doing the signage and wayfinding planning, they don't need to be outside the Stade de France planning this. If they did go there today, it wouldn't look like it will look like during the Olympic Games. So actually they get a more realistic view of the Games times operations in the digital twin. Broadcast is a really, really big one for us. So we built in kind of camera capability. We can take a camera specification from any broadcaster and we can mimic it in the digital twin. So it will zoom as far as it can zoom. It will pan as far as it can pan. It will act in exactly the same way as that broadcast camera. And we could do likewise with CCTV. So think about some of the advantages that has in terms of showing sponsors, this is what your advertising will look like on TV. And they can start to drive sponsorship sales. So the big benefit of that, massively reducing down the cost of site visits and the need for site visits. So we're currently building the Kudos Bank Arena out in Australia. And the reason we're doing that is for the International Federation of Basketball. They can't get to Australia to do their site visits, so they're doing all the planning for their World Cup event in the digital twin rather than going there. The amount of money that's saving is phenomenal, and the carbon footprint saving is also significant as well. Okay, we're working with the LA Clippers. An amazing client to have. The owner of the LA Clippers is Steve Ballmer. If you don't know Steve Ballmer, Google him. He's a very animated individual. He's a former CEO of Microsoft, incredibly passionate about his team. He's building them a new venue. So we know that Steve Ballmer, this is the new venue which opens in 3 to 4 years' time. Steve Ballmer has walked through Venue Twin. He's got out of his car and he's walked into his venue and sat in his seat. He's taken design decisions about that venue based on Venue Twin, the height of the halo, how that whole kind of space will feel. He's changed the colour of the seats as well. So you can see there, the red seats, they're actually now black because Steve wanted to kind of change them. But we can move everything around in that environment. We can move where the chairs are. We can also put a concert in that environment as well. So, you know, lots of different scenarios we can do. This is helping out some of the big event production companies, particularly on seat kills. So let's say that Live Nation will put a Taylor Swift concert into that arena. They can then put their infrastructure for Taylor Swift into that environment and see which seats need to be killed. Will the actual production work across that whole environment? It reduces down risk, reduces down the site visits, and helps to drive the revenue. Okay, working a lot in kind of hospitality as well. So one of the big advantages for the Clippers is they're now able to sell some of their spaces. So this is a hospitality suite for the Edmonton Commonwealth Stadium in Canada. They are potentially a World Cup venue for 2026. So they're able to show FIFA from home what the hospitality suites will exactly look like. So what are the kind of three big benefits? Well, the first one is reducing cost. You don't need to kind of do those site visits, and we're proving that with FIFA. They're not needing to go there. Also, similarly with the International Federation of Basketball, they're not needing to travel as much to Indonesia, China, and Australia. They can do planning as well as the site visits in this virtual environment as well. What's the knock-on effects for Paris 2024? Well, if you're a supplier of, say, signage and wayfinding, temporary seating, broadcast, they can then say to those suppliers, hey, we know that you can reduce your site visits down by 25% because we're going to give you access to this digital twin. We're going to give you access to it to do your planning. That then means that supplier's price is going to be lower. So there's a direct cost saving to Paris 2024, and they're able then to reduce their kind of carbon footprint. Now, we know Paris at the moment are negotiating with airline partners, and how it works with airline partners on Olympic Games is they will give value in kind. They will give a number of free flights, economy and business class flights. Okay? They can reduce down that allocation now because they know not many site visits are needed. They won't need as many flights. They're now converting that into cash. So the VIK cut converts from free flights over to cash. So it's actually generating them hard cash in their pocket by having the digital twin. Okay, so yeah, the cost cutting in terms of emissions is kind of significant across those major events and also for venues as well. They're not having to go and see clients as much. They can give them access to it. And in terms of increasing revenue, there's some kind of really good examples in terms of the hospitality spaces, which I'll show you shortly. Okay, back to the Commonwealth Stadium. So this is Commonwealth Stadium Edmonton. It's a very old stadium built in the 1960s. And they needed to prove to FIFA that their venue is going to be suitable as a FIFA regulation venue. So when we fly out into the stadium, there's a part of the stadium where the media are. It needs to be covered over to protect them from the elements. And what we noticed when we went into digital twin was the canopy was actually going to block some of the lines of sight for spectators and also the line of sight for broadcast cameras as well. They were able to readjust that in the digital twin before FIFA saw it, so it kind of mitigated some of those risks. So yeah, huge kind of cost saving with this. We're now also doing this for the SoFi Stadium in LA, so we're putting a FIFA regulation configuration within the SoFi Stadium, which is actually a stadium built for American football, not for soccer, so they are going to have some challenges, but we're able to kind of simulate that, see how the field of play looks, see all the camera kind of positions on there as well. Okay, a video here, just at one of the Paris venues. So this shows how we can change the time of day, the weather conditions, so you can simulate different scenarios. We are able to get flood data for most European countries and in North America, so we can actually tell you and show you what it will be like if it floods. So there's lots of simulations we can do. The carbon footprint saving for a multi-sports event is in excess of 20,000 tonnes of CO emissions a year. And for individual sports federations, it's well in excess of 1,000 tonnes of CO, and that's because of that reduction in kind of site visits and the ability to kind of plan collaboratively. Carbon footprint is a kind of a big thing for us, and we're associated with a number of kind of initiatives in that area. So it's a big thing coming forward, and we're hoping to have some very, very big targets next year to support many of our clients in reducing their carbon footprint. So we know it's kind of a hot topic at the moment, but it's something we take very seriously. Okay, increasing revenue. So where we do hospitality suites, they want a lot of detail, the creases in the chairs, they want to see the bruises on the apples. So this is one of our very, very kind of high-end products. And here, the LA Clippers are selling their hospitality suites now. So this venue will not open for 3 or 4 years' time. They just sold that hospitality suite 2 years ago for $45 million. 15-year deal, but $45 million. Okay, and they've got another 49 to go. So they're able to sell that now. So they're selling things quicker and for more value. They're able to change around the branding in there. So say it's selling it to Twitter or it's selling it to Netflix. They're able to themselves change around the branding in there to make it look like it. And I think in this particular suite, the client didn't like the brown sofa, so they changed it to another type of sofa, which is fine. But the end client can do that themselves. They're not coming back to us to render it out and do it again. We're giving all the power and all the capability to our individual clients to be able to do that. Okay, media manager is the other big one we use as well. So this is showing sponsors what the view of their field or play will be like. We've also put various different brands on the outside of this arena because they were talking to a number of different major clients about naming rights for the arena. So we put kind of Tesla's logo on there, we put Netflix logo on there and such like. Okay, some of you will be aware of OnePlan, which is our core 2D platform. Now, these two things are linked together, OnePlan and VenueTwin. We haven't created two plan. So on the left-hand side is OnePlan, the right-hand side is VenueTwin. And what you will see, they all work off the same database, they're linked in together. So if I move something or change something in the OnePlan system, it instantly updates in VenueTwin as well. So we're not creating two separate systems. That's the big kind of push from OnePlan, is to create one single source of truth. And we're still, that's absolutely kind of at our core. So yeah, the two systems linked together. So it's a GIS platform and then the 3D visualization platform. Okay, some of the things we're now moving into is testing out kind of light shows. So here we have a concert set up for the Forum, which is a venue in LA near the SoFi Stadium. So we're looking at testing out different lighting simulations. So essentially an opening ceremony of Olympic Games or a Taylor Swift concert. What does the light show look like in that particular venue? How will it work? Are there any issues? The other thing we're working hard on is also sound as well. Our kind of mission is, from at home, a spectator can put on a headset and they can hear what it would sound like from their seat, as well as see what it would look like as well. A lot of big arenas do have a lot of challenges in terms of the audio and how that works. So we take account of the surfaces, whether it's concrete, whether it's carpeted floor, the output of the speakers. So a very realistic simulation in terms of the sound output. So that's kind of the ultimate aim we're kind of moving towards next year and doing more simulations for our client. But yeah, next couple of years, you'll be able to kind of sit at home and hear what it'll sound like if you're at a Taylor Swift concert or whether you were going to watch kind of a basketball game in the LA Clippers arena. So yeah, some big advancements that we're doing there. Okay, so just in kind of summary, where we see some of the kind of core benefits in a fly-through to the venues, so getting familiarization with the venues that you're operating in, the media manager, which I've discussed, the sponsorship opportunities, camera positions. So you can see on the camera position there, that's where the broadcast camera positions were actually blocked by the canopy. So you can see where we were able to raise up the cameras, make sure it all works, make sure FIFA were happy with the broadcast positions, and then can move on. All done remotely and all done instantly as well. Previously, we've all done it where we sent plans back and forward with safety advisory groups and with clients going, are you okay with this? Can you give me feedback? Well, now it's all done in real time. You get online, should we move the camera position? Okay, let's do it now. Everybody okay with it? Signed off, bang, and we move on. So that time saving is kind of like significant. So, and you can share any of these plans in editable format or view only. You might want to share with emergency services or a supplier in view only format because you don't want them playing around with their plan, and you just get them to leave a note in there for you, but you can do things kind of instantly. So all that kind of time saving is significant. Okay, virtual events. So we're looking to kind of almost lease out some of these venues. So the vision for the LA Clippers is they are going to lease and maximize the commercial benefit of that venue. So for example, approaching Hopin and say, hey Hopin, we would like you to rent out the LA Clippers new arena for a virtual event. So you go to a virtual conference, be it in medical or whatever kind of sector it is, but they can actually host it online in that digital environment before the venue's even open. And it'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it, if you're, to go to that LA Clippers kind of arena now and experience a conference in that environment. So this is where we think about, it's a 20,000 seat arena, but actually the number of users could be significant. There's no time limitations. It could be as many times as you like. There's no capacity limitations. So it takes us away from spectators, just focusing on spectators, to users of a physical venue. So this venue is for them to maximize. Okay, interactive floor plans. We've kind of shown you a little bit of that in terms of the kind of high-end product. Seat view product. This is where what we do is photo bubbles. So it works very, very similar to Google Street View. So we do photo bubbles over all the seats, and you can see your view from the seat. And we can also walk you from the metro station for where you'll park your car, all the way through the concessions and all the way into your seat. That's a really great product because it's very kind of low in terms of its requirement on your Wi-Fi network and on your kind of capability of your laptop, because it's just photo bubble. So it works very, very similar to Google Street View. very fan experience. Obvious ones where we can kind of engage. Can you do kind of concerts kind of live in the digital twin? And then the other one is NFTs is always a fashionable turn at the moment. So can people put their NFTs in a digital space somehow? So it's another thing we're kind of starting to explore and look at, very big in the US market. So another one that we're considering as well. Okay, so that's kind of it. The quick kind of run through on what we're doing. Links to the website there, links to our kind of social media feed. But yeah, really, really happy to kind of take any questions. And as we're doing that, I'll just run through an outdoor venue that we've done recently. This is a really interesting example because it's all done from photogrammetry technique. Our team never went there, never set foot in this venue. We take high resolution satellite imagery, and we build out a 3D kind of environment. So that tree is actually there. It is that type of tree. Those rocks are actually in that position, and we can even make the leaves go brown for different kind of times of the year. But yeah, you'll recognise this venue, Blenheim Palace in the UK, and the triathlon venue there. So yeah, we're able to do this without even kind of visiting the venue with some of the techniques we have. Okay, Craig, any questions?
Yeah, as I said right at the beginning, if you've got any questions or you want to raise any questions, if we can just ask you to do that online using the QR code here or glsr.live/ETL21. I think we're still waiting for our first one, so I'm going to ad-lib a little bit and just ask you some questions. I remember meeting you here a few years ago, and it was a 2D platform, and it was really kind of innovative at that point, but nothing like the venue twin thing that you've just kind of run us through. How did that evolve? What was that evolution process for you? Was it driven by need or by technology?
Yeah, more by need. People were saying, look, we can't go and visit these countries because a lot of stuff was being planned, particularly international federations. Like they were still planning. They still had world championships because they need to do them for the qualifiers for Olympic Games and such like. So like, how can we do a good virtual site visit? And yeah, we're linked up with Unreal Engine Epic Games, who some of you know create the Fortnite game, and with Intel. So in about 6 months, we accelerated. The big challenge was people were doing virtual site visits, but not being able to move things around, not able to change things. It generally just tended to be a video. This is what the venue looks like. Go and have a look at it. The difference here is we put that into Venue Twin, where you can change the sign, you can change the type of it, you can change the positions and change the weather. So we wanted it, to be like a game and experience. But really driven, and we're very fortunate. The LA Clippers have been brilliant with us. They realise we're kind of a startup, and they've really kind of helped us on the journey. And we get a lot of cool stuff, working with the former CEO of Microsoft and with Intel. We've got some kind of big benefits there and leveraging those relationships.
Yeah, amazing. And we're trying on this stage not to mention the C word, the COVID word, but do you think the last kind of 18 months has accelerated the move into this sort of technology and virtual site visits? And do you think things will ever go back to how they were before?
Yeah, it's definitely accelerated it. We were always going to go into the more 3D space or digital twinning space, as we like to refer to it as, but it's happened kind of much quicker. And it's interesting with some of our clients about how they've paid for their digital environment, and it's come from the travel budget. So, well, we're not doing the travelling, and some of those travel budgets for those international federations are huge because they all travel business class, they all stay in the nicest hotels, they eat in the nicest restaurants. And now the finance directors have gone, well, we ain't going back. You can have some of your site visits, but you're not having the 10 that you had kind of last year. We'll cut it down. So almost instantly they're seeing the cost saving and the carbon footprint saving. So it's kind of quite difficult to go back. As long as the product is up to standard, they can do everything they need, then it's kind of really positive. And we're really pleased that is the case. So yeah, we see it kind of carrying on beyond COVID. I tend to say it kind of quietly, but yeah, COVID was kind of quite good in terms of the technology development of what we've been able to do.
I think really interesting, actually, the sustainability thing you mentioned. Our first two sessions this morning on this stage were both about sustainability, and sounds like it can make a real difference in that space as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think particularly in Europe, it's a big thing. The International Federation of Sport, Paris have got a massive, at 24 have got a massive kind of target in that. But it's like, how do you achieve that? And then how do you measure it? So I think we need to kind of do more working with partners as well, to like how we kind of measure that and how we show as an industry we're making a really big effort to reduce our carbon footprint. And here are the numbers that kind of stacks up with that. So we're really, really kind of keen to work with different partners to support that.
Perfect. A couple of questions have popped up over my left-hand shoulder whilst we've been talking, so we'll just run through those. We'll start at the bottom and work our way up. So, do you use laser scans at all to inform how you build a twin? And if so, is that integrated using the game engine or Venue Twin?
Yeah. So we can do LiDAR scanning of a venue. Commonwealth Stadium, we did do that. So this is where, and you can do this with your iPhone actually, but you wouldn't want to do a stadium, it'll take you a long time to do it, but you could do it like in your bedroom or your front room. So essentially a laser is firing out from your iPhone and it's measuring everything really accurately. We use quite heavy technology to be able to do that. Fortunately, a lot of stadiums and arenas already have LiDAR scans because their Wi-Fi provider or their 5G provider has done it because they need to know where the Wi-Fi units go and what the capability is in terms of 5G. So the Commonwealth Stadium had already done it. Their kind of network provider had done that. So we use that, we pull that into the Venue Twin, and it means it's a really accurate kind of drawing. The other way we do it is from like AutoCAD and Revit drawings, which is great, but sometimes, what's been designed by the architect isn't always how the venues kind of ended up. With the LA Clippers, we're working very closely with AECOM, one of the biggest engineering companies in the world, so we've kind of got a direct link into their system to kind of auto-create the Venue Twin. But there's, a number of different ways we can do it. LiDAR is definitely the best because it's the most accurate and kind of as things actually are.
Cool. Perfect. The next question, how long did it take you to get to where you are now? And how did you originally market the kind of concept when you came up with it?
Yeah, so One Plan as a company, we've been kind of live 2.5 years now. Venue Twin's been around for about kind of 9 months. Our team all have a background in events, so we're not kind of tech people. We all had the pain. We all experienced the pain of event planning. And Henry, who's in the team with us, has worked with kind of many events as well. So we had the pain. That's where it all came from. So when we're talking to event organisers, we kind of understand it. So I think that's why we've been able to get so much traction so quickly. And then it kind of came pretty obvious in the digital twinning how that was going to benefit. So we just kind of went for it. And fortunately, we've been able to grow out that. Our team's kind of tripled in size in the last year or so, and we're now operating in over 50 countries worldwide. We've kind of really taken advantage of the opportunities available to us.
Yeah, staggering growth. Congratulations. On the kind of specifics of the model you showed us earlier of Blenheim Palace, how long would something like that take to make and get from idea to the finished product?
Yeah, so kind of 3 things impact on how long it takes. The first one is kind of fidelity. How detailed do you want it? Are you showing bruises on the apples, or do you just want an idea of the space? Second one is then functionality. So what functionality do you want? Do you want seat view, suite view? What are you actually doing in that space? And then the final one is the geographical area, like how big. We've actually got 5 square kilometres of Paris in Venue Twin at the moment. Parts of it are really detailed. You can see kind of the bits of moss between the cobblestones, but other bits aren't so detailed. So those are the 3 things. In terms of that Blenheim Palace one, because the fidelity in some areas isn't kind of as detailed as you see where that tree is. So we kind of use some techniques to kind of trick you a bit. But that one probably took us about 4 to 5 weeks to kind of create.
Cool. So have you run any virtual or hybrid events using your models as yet?
Not yet, but really super keen to do that. So we're looking to kind of work with other providers who are in that space. It's not something we're going to go into, but whether we can give you access to an asset where you can use for those events. I know the LA Clippers, for example, are super keen on this. So if anybody wanted to kind of have a virtual event hosted in their arena, they'd be like super keen, and we can kind of link that up. So if we can facilitate that, please come and talk to us.
And the top question says, do you use LODs? Which doesn't mean a lot to me. I'm hoping it means a little bit more to you than it does to me.
It doesn't actually. Yeah, I don't know what the... Sorry?
Level of detail, I think he's saying.
Yeah, we'll have a chat about that afterwards so I can understand the question better, but yeah.
Yeah, perfect, thank you. And I was just going to kind of finish up by asking, I know we've talked a lot in the past about collaboration and working between different parts of technology. You've just referenced a really great example there actually with the LA Clippers. Do you think that's got a really big kind of part to play in the industry moving forwards in terms of bringing all these bits of technology together and combining like those assets which benefit event organisers?
Yeah, definitely, and it's always everybody wants to integrate and everyone wants to collaborate, which is great. And I think we've got an industry that's really open to that. Where we find the quickest kind of progress gets made is where there's like a joint client. So, for example, we work with the likes of like WeTrack, and so where we've got a joint client, we can then understand the needs of that client more deeply and make sure we don't just create an integration for the sake of it and say, hey, look, we work together, isn't it brilliant? But actually there's a real kind of need there. And I think the other big benefit is because we're partnered with some of the the real big players in outside of our sector, so Intel's a partner, Epic Games is a partner, they unlock a lot of kind of capability for us and a lot of kind of clients. So we're added in with Intel in their offering 2 stadiums, 2 arenas. So that's why I would encourage smaller kind of companies, try and link in with some of these big players. A lot of them do have, pretty good kind of partnership programs, which are quite, they might seem a bit daunting first of all, but actually when you get underneath it, a lot of these Intel are really keen to work with startups. It's just about getting the right contacts to kind of facilitate that relationship.
Perfect, and that brings us to the end of our allocated time slot as well. So thank you very much everyone for coming. Thank you for coming to see us at the Orange Stage. I hope you have a wonderful day at the rest of Event Tech Live. I'm sure Paul would be open to any questions on the floor afterwards if we haven't answered anything that you may have to answer. I know the One Plan stand is just behind us as well, so if you want to pop and see them, then feel free to do that. But yeah, have a lovely day. Thank you very much for seeing us, and yeah, take care.